So I'm certain this is probably not the highlight of your day, but I will tell you it's the highlight of my day. So this is the most interesting thing I get to do today. So thank you. So if nothing else, I'll be happy that I get to do this today, and maybe you guys can leave with something that you may have learned too. But Mrs. Wright asked me to speak, and she said, "Yeah, we'll speak on whatever you want." And so it's Holy Thursday. It's my son's birthday, and this is the Chesterton Academy. So I'm going to try to tie all those three things together for a little conversation here today. I apologize right away to, as I see the green light, to the people online that I am going to talk with my hands. It's going to freeze. It's not going to work, but I'll do my best. But I need to get some understanding of where you guys are at. The piece I'm missing here is my audience understanding. So you all attend the Chesterton Academy, for which I'm ecstatic. And how much Chesterton do you look at? So what Chesterton have you read as a part of the course or your time here in the Chesterton Academy, if any? If it's none, then I'll be chatting with your teachers and later on. But yeah.
For one, Ballad of the White Horse.
Ballad of the White Horse. Okay, I will mention the Ballad of the White Horse, and I'm going to make a connection to Ballad of the White Horse to another piece of literature that I think you've probably never heard about before. I hope you've never heard about it before. You have some pretty good instructors, so they might have all these tidbits. But Ballad of the White Horse, that's a great poem. Yes, my favorite poem of his.
Parts of Orthodoxy and some of his essays.
Parts of Orthodoxy and a few of his essays. Very good. Thank you. Can anyone have said to have read all of Chesterton's essays?
Alquist, maybe?
I would say anyone. First off, I'm going to say Dale Alquist isn't the world's premier Chestertonian. World's premier Chestertonian was, sadly, an Edmontonian.
Yeah.
How about that? But anyway, we'll come to that later on. And Dale Alquist would say it too, I think, to be honest. And Dale Alquist would probably also say that anyone who tells you they read all of Chesterton is making a mistake, because it's not all found yet. There are still essays being found of Chesterton, thousands of essays. So he's very well. So those are the main works. Anything else? Anything I missed that anybody's read? Anyone has read of Chesterton's?
We had a student mention it in their capstone project.
Yeah,
yesterday.
fantastic.
Wow.
That's you throwing you up?
Oh, no, it was not.
Oh, nice.
Who was that? Who was it?
Everlasting Man.
Who did that?
Josh, was that you?
Who was?
We had to read Everlasting.
You guys don't remember your capstone? Okay. My favorite. That's my favorite, by the way, and I'll explain why in a little bit. And I will read from it today. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about Chesterton, and talk a little bit about Easter and the Triduum. We're here at the end of Lent. So speaking to that, I think it's relevant. I'm going to talk a little bit about joy, and I want to answer your questions. And then I'm going to leave you with the challenge and a contest. And there's prizes. There is a prize, I should say, to the contest. So yeah. So what's that? Maybe actually maybe yeah. It's not like a quiz contest. So speaking of that, so we have Michael Collins, Mumford and Sons, these various other people you may be aware of on the screen. What do they all have in common? J.K. Rowling, Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah. Somebody asked, J.K. Rowling's been in the media lately. There's just a recent decision in the UK Supreme Court. Anyway, she's very on social media and whatnot. Well, the answer is they'll have that guy come. They all read and quoted G.K. Chesterton at some point. They all would say that they were moved in some way by G.K. Chesterton, some more than others, some more obviously than others, but they have that. And you can add to the list Alfred Hitchcock, Orson Welles, Ernest Hemingway, Marshall McLuhan, Fulton Sheen, And many C.S. Lewis sagas. And you say to yourself, really, Gandhi? Absolutely. One of his essays on nationalism was very impactful on how Gandhi decided to proceed towards an Indian solution. Yeah, but I won't spend much time on that. Is that news to you? Like, I want to make sure I'm not saying things you guys already.
Yeah.
If this is like, if I'm running over the same ground, let me know, because I got different ground we can go over, that's for sure. But he was named the Defender of the Faith by Pope Pius XII. But here's the thing. Never take it too seriously. Okay? Angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. Chesterton enjoyed entertaining children by throwing a bun in the air and catching it with his mouth. Okay, and this is the sign. Like, you know, people have this thing caught up that if it's deep, it can't be joyous. And Chesterton is the premier example of the opposite. You can be deep and joyous. You can be significant and joyous at the same time, and light. It's okay to not take ourselves too seriously. And he certainly didn't. He loved entertaining children. It was one of the tragedies that him and his wife could not have their own family. But he was the entertainer of many people around. These are things you probably already know. My standard Chesterton jokes. H.G. Wells was a good friend of his. They disagreed on everything, and he was a tiny little man. He was like Dr. McClarney, except maybe that tall. And Chesterton would have been more like some combination between Mr. Sangster and myself. Yes.
So Peter online, when you have a moment, has a question.
Oh, let's go right now.
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
See the presentation that well.
You can't see the
Can't see it. Okay.
because it's me they're looking at. They really should. They don't need to look at me. They can look at the presentation.
Thanks, Peter. We'll share it with
Yeah. Thank you. What was that? Oh, Shaw. Shaw once said in a debate, they said, Shaw said to Chesterton, to look at you, sir, you'd think there was a famine in the land. Or, no, that's what Chesterton said to Shaw, sorry. He said, to look at you, sir, you'd think there's a famine in the land. Shaw said, to look at you, sir, you think you caused it. Right? Right? Yeah. 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 He was an unusual saint. He's not a saint, but one can hope. Well, he may be in heaven, but he's not declared a saint at this point. He's the politest person on the bus because he can stand up and offer his seat to two people. Okay, she got it. Yeah, all right, good. Carried a sword stick and apparently a revolver to defend his bride. He wrote all the things. He would call himself a journalist, but he wrote in any number of areas: theology, literary criticism, poetry, everything, detective stories. For me, I find my own thoughts better expressed than I could do it myself when I read Chesterton. He did much of his writing in train stations. He once caught a cab to get across the street. So he was incredibly absent-minded while incredibly deep at the same time. A number of his secretaries have reported the same thing, that he could write an essay and dictate an essay at the same time. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's what's been a number of people have said that. He wasn't a siloed philosopher or thinker. He doesn't work well with the way academia works today because he was a generalist. He thought and wrote about everything. He doesn't fit into the neat little categories of what we now call the different social sciences. For example, he wasn't a theologian per se. He wasn't an economist per se. He wasn't a political philosopher per se, but he did all those things. In my collection, I'm going to pull from books, and at the end, the prize for the contest will be a book. But I'm going to pull from books. This is my most treasured book of, well, it's not by G.K. Chesterton, but about G.K. Chesterton. This was by his secretary, Maisie Ward. One of the first biographies of G.K. Chesterton, maybe the first, I don't know. It was written in 1945. And so this book was published in 1945. It's from 1945, and it's inscribed in it. And it's part of the idea of having something physical when you read. A lot of this work that you guys are doing is online. I know that. And I know this experiment here has been a desire to be in each other's presence, right? Where you can do a lot of amazing work online, and I don't deny that for a second, but we're an incarnational people. Touching and feeling things matters, and touching and feeling a book also matters. So I would encourage you, the song, this country song, I don't know if anybody knows it anymore, Buy Dirt.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to write a song. You like that one? It's a good one. I'd like to write a song, Buy Books. Buy Books. So, anyway. Well, there is my son. My son's name is Leo. It's his birthday today, by the way. He's 7 today. And the reason, why do I point him out to you there? This talks about the impact that a writer can have on your life. My son's middle name is Chesterton. So that's Leo Chesterton Corrigan right there. My youngest of 5. I have 5 kids, 24, and then the youngest is the oldest, and she's still 24, yeah, 24. And then you have 5 kids, you got to think about it. And then my youngest is just turning 7 today. So, and that is Leo Chesterton Corrigan with, in my opinion, the greatest Chestertonian thinker of our time, Father Ian Boyd, who retired in Edmonton, actually, and was at St. Andrew's Parish. And I had the privilege of meeting with for supper a few times. And I was just blown away by his wisdom. The stories he would tell, I wish I had recorded them. He talked about things, so many things I didn't know about how Chesterton was in the common parlance in the time. So the victory in Europe, the London Times, the headline was a quote from G.K. Chesterton. And people would know it then, right? And how far we've come, how far we've lost the wisdom of Chesterton and his way of thinking as we move forward. So,
And can I just say something about this? Because when I was at seminary, I went to Mass at St. Benedict's Chapel in the city center mall once. And I saw this priest saying Mass. I'd never seen him before. So I chatted with him afterwards briefly. He said, "Hi, my name's Father Ian, and I'm new here." And he said, I wrote a book on Chesterton's early novels. And that was it. I'm like, "Oh, that's cool."
that's all he said.
Like, yeah, that's cool. I like Chesterton too. That's really neat. And then later I kind of Googled him and discovered he was the editor of the
Chesterton Review for like 30 years.
He was like very low key about it. Like he didn't let on that he was the greatest Chestertonian mind in our time.
Yeah, and I think that's a reasonable statement that like I said, Dale Alquist was a big fan of Father Boyd's as well. So anyway, so that I got one picture of Leo Chesterton with Father Ian, that's special to me. So moving on to a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. Well, before I get into it, were there any questions on anything I've said so far, just about Chesterton in general? You can talk about my association with Chesterton and the relevance it's had on me before I get into this Chesterton and kind of the end of Lent and Holy Week here where we are.
But do you ever remember the quote from the?
I don't, and I will tell you, I was in the car trying to figure it out. I was trying to Google it, and I tried an AI that didn't work very well, and I can't remember for the life of me. I'm very disappointed about it. I think I'd like to go back, and I'm sure I can find it. I'm sure it's out there, but yeah, that's funny you say that. That's, I was thinking about that. So one of the things Chesterton said about this is a couple of years ago they did a Chesterton Lent thing, but a meal is nothing if it is not eternal. What's he referring to here? Oh, we thought it was just sitting yet. Hey, no, you gotta respond to me. What's he referring to here? The vaunted Chesterton students. I've heard a lot about you guys and where you're at. So you gotta be able to answer this question. This is not, yeah.
I feel like it connects to the fact that, like people get hungry after they eat food.
Right.
And kind of like when Jesus tells the woman at the well, like, "I'll give you living water. And you'll never be thirsty again." So when he says a meal is nothing if it's not eternal, it's like, it's just something passing. And it won't fill us up forever. If it's not eternal.
This is beautiful. It's a great answer. Great answer. Now take it deeper. Why would it be today? Why would I be showing you this today, though? You may well be right. I might be wrong, but I'm going to tie it to today. And I think your answer was a good one. But yes.
The Last Supper.
Yeah.
The first Last Supper, and we're celebrating OG.
Yeah, today is the feast of, did you say OG?
Yes, the original Jesus.
Oh, we're telling you.
Original supper.
I'm gonna go home and I have a 17-year-old, so I'm gonna tell her that somebody said OG and I had to say what. She's gonna be like, Dad, so lame. Anyway, thank you for that. Yes, and you are correct. So tonight is the night when we specifically, of course at every Mass we do this, but specifically tonight, the beginning of the 3 days, right? Which is one celebration over 3 days. Tonight we commemorate the Feast of the Last Supper, about the gathering for the last meal, the institution of the modern priesthood, if you will, the institution of the Eucharist as we understand it at that night. And so a meal is nothing if not eternal. Must be a reference also to the Eucharist that we celebrate this evening at Holy Thursday. So with that, I want to go to some of his source material and take a look at it and see the things he has to say about the weekend we're in. So we're going to do that by looking at a couple of books, Orthodoxy and Everlasting Man. So G.K. Chesterton didn't become Catholic until when? Anybody know? Did you know he wasn't Catholic? Yeah, why wasn't he Catholic?
England.
He was from England, so he was born Anglican and he was raised Anglican. But I would say he was Catholic and fought fairly early on. I would say that's my argument. But he didn't become Catholic. Yeah.
It was in 1935.
No.
Come on, Olivia.
He died in 36. He died in 36. So he became Catholic in 1922. He wrote Orthodoxy in 1903, 05, something like that, early. Orthodoxy is probably his best known work. It's the most concisely written, probably the best written of his books. It's not my favorite, but it was when he was not Catholic. Very, very Catholic in thinking, very Western Christian, very classical Christian in thinking. But he didn't become Catholic, I think, in large part because his wife wasn't quite willing to come with it, wasn't there yet. And so he waited with his wife and they became Catholic together in 1922. After which he wrote this book, The Everlasting Man, which is my favorite, which was a response to, and you guys heard me last year. So how many people heard me last year when I spoke about the history of this book? Nobody? Did nobody hear me?
It's 2
That's 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole then. But anyway, he wrote this book called The Everlasting Man in response to, there was a dialogue in those days that we don't have in the common understanding today. Like, I mean, we're going to have a debate tonight, but everybody's going to yell over top of each other and they're just going to look for sound bites and they're not going to really get into it, right? H.G. Wells wrote a book. It was called,
The Outline of History.
The Outline of History. It was called The Outline of History. And it was the first atheistic history perhaps ever written, at least in the West. And Chesterton disagreed with it. And so what he did is he wrote a book in response to it. This is his outline of history. And it's obliquely referred to in here a couple times, the beginning and the end, if you pay attention. But most people wouldn't even notice that this was written in response to H.G. Wells' Outline of History. And yeah, there's a lot I could talk about with that in terms of who was influenced by what. C.S. Lewis's wife was very influenced by H.G. Wells. C.S. Lewis was very influenced by G.K. Chesterton. They ultimately became married, and the Christian vision, the Chestertonian vision, ultimately prevailed in that conversation. As does this over the Outline of History by a long stretch. So, but I'm going to start with his earlier work, and I'm going to move to that one if that's all right. And I'm going to read a little bit about it, and I just am interested in your thoughts. And where we go. This is Dr. McClarney lent me this because I didn't have a physical copy. The problem with books like this is I tend to give them away to people, and then it's like I don't have one, so I got to order another one. On we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna figure out where to put it. I didn't want to mark in his book, so
We go right ahead.
I should have, yeah.
Corrigan animated version.
Yeah.
Exactly. My fault. Oh, shoot. I might move on if I can't find it. It's in this chapter. Okay, let me. Apologies. I'll hold on reading it here, and I'll go to the everlasting man to read stuff. But here he in chapter 8 here he talks about, so the last chapter of this book. This book is about a person who sets off in, what is it about? Has anyone read Orthodoxy? It's about a person who sets off in pursuit of the new world, finding the new things. And he ends up at his home, but he believes it's a new place that he's discovered, and he sees his home with new eyes. He sees the things he's doing with new eyes, and he feels like he's rediscovering something. And what he's rediscovering is Orthodoxy. It was his defense of the faith. Chesterton wrote this book because of a call of, he was very good at attacking other people, attacking things. He wrote a book called What's Wrong with the World. And he was first told in the Illustrated London News, he was said, what's wrong with the world? And he responded, and he said, dear sir, what's wrong with the world? And his response was, dear sir, I am yours, G.K. Chesterton. And what did he mean by that?
That man is in the world stuff.
Not just man, but yes.
Humans.
No, I don't mean it that way.
Oh.
I don't mean not everybody. I don't mean it. I don't mean everybody. Not just man. I mean him. I am what's wrong. Right? Not pointing at humanity, but pointing at self. Right? I am the problem. And boy, if there's one lesson, the only person you really have any control over changing is you. And that's the call of, I think, the Lenten season in large part. But then he was told, well, that's not good enough, write a book. So he wrote a book, What's Wrong with the World? And then there's a whole bunch of chapters from World. And then they said, well, that's fine, you can tear everything down, but can you build stuff up? What do you believe in? Well, he wrote a book, Orthodoxy, to explain what it is he believes in. And in here, he talks about the moment in the garden. That's the quote I was looking for that I can't find. But it's a meditation on the passion and the Garden of Gethsemane. So what happened in the Garden of Gethsemane? So we're talking about after the meal now, where do they go? I just said it. They go to the Garden of Gethsemane. Why do you suppose a garden? Yeah. There's a relationship between the Garden of Gethsemane and the Garden of Eden because Jesus is the new Adam. Yeah. And what happened to Adam in the garden?
He spiritually dies.
He spiritually dies after he was
Sinful.
After he was sinful, and he was sinful after he was tempted. What happens to Jesus in the garden? Yeah, Chesterton talks about how he's tempted in the garden. Well, this is interesting. He's God, right? God tempts God. It blows your mind away, this idea. And his tears were like blood. So Chesterton talks about God choosing to experience doubt, abandonment, and despair, right? And this is the classic understanding of Christianity. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, get that one. Anyway, the traditional crucifix.
It is used by the cross.
Yeah. You guys know it. I don't have to point to it, but the traditional crucifix with the corpus of Christ, in the throes. Talk about how do we get God off the hook for evil? How do we get God off? We don't get God off the hook for evil. God's on the hook. The hook is the cross. That's what we're going to experience tomorrow on Good Friday. God chose to experience abandonment, doubt, and despair. And doubt. God tempted God. As I was thinking about this, but it kind of just blew my mind away, that understanding. God doesn't flee from it. He enters it. He goes through it. So whatever you're going through, God has went through in the person of Jesus, right? At this time through the Passion. But moving on to Everlasting Man. This one I'm a little better, I will find. He talks about the end of the world. So, have you guys studied, what history have you studied? If I said Carthage, would you know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's Carthage?
Well, this part that we studied was like the part where it had to be fight Rome
Yeah.
a lot, and there was a lot of battles. It's like just on the north of that.
Yeah, very good.
What did Cato keep saying about Carthage? Oh, you didn't do that?
You don't have to do it in Latin if you want.
All right.
But you could if you want. Carthage must be destroyed, right? I won't try my Latin here with these esteemed fellows, but the Carthage must be destroyed. Chesterton talks about that in this book, in his history book, as the War of Gods and Demons. He talks about the household gods, the gods of Rome, the gods of hearth and home, of good things, of family, of food, of fellowship, versus the demonic understanding of Carthage, which was mercantilism, which was economic prowess, which was literally the sacrifice of babies. And he talks about the triumph of Rome over Carthage as the greatness of the ancient world. And when we're doing classical education, it's what is the beauty of classical education is that you're able to contextualize these things. We're able to think about Rome. Well, Rome was pagan. Pagan doesn't necessarily mean bad. We have a lot of what we have in our Catholic faith and our Western Christian understanding from Rome and from pagan. Where did it come from? How did it get there? And there was this struggle. And Chesterton talks about Rome being basically as great, in part, along with the Jewish faith and along with the Greek philosophy, as the greatest that humanity could do. And I'm going to read you a little bit. So that's the stage for what I'm going to read. The life of the great civilization, this is Rome, now we're at the time of Christ, went on with dreary industry and even dreary festivity. It was the end of the world, and the worst of it was that it never needed end. A convenient compromise had been made between all the multitudinous myths and religions of the empire that each group should worship freely and merely give a sort of official flourish. See, I'm waving my hand. Oh, it didn't go green. Of thanks to the tolerant emperor by tossing a little incense to him under his official title of Divus. So the Roman emperor was a god at some point, but it's okay. We kind of just, we just do what we need to do and move on. Naturally, there was no difficulty about that, or rather it was a long time before the world realized that there ever had been a trivial difficulty anywhere. The members of some Eastern sect or secret society or other seemed to have made a scene somewhere. Nobody could imagine why. The incident occurred once or twice again and began to arouse irritation out of proportion to its insignificance. It was not exactly what these provincials said, though of course it sounded queer enough. They seemed to be saying that God was dead and they themselves had seen him die. This might be one of many manias produced in the despair of the age, only they did not seem particularly despairing. They seemed quite unnaturally joyful about it, and gave the reason that the death of God had allowed them to eat and drink his blood. According to other accounts, God was not exactly dead after all. There trailed through the bewildered imagination some sort of fantastic procession of the funeral of God, at which the sun turned black, but which ended with the dead omnipotence breaking out of the tomb and rising again like the sun. But it was not the strange story to which anyone paid any particular attention. People in that world had seen religions queer enough to fill a madhouse. It was something in the tone of the madmen and their type of formation. They were a scratch company of barbarians and slaves and poor and unimportant people, but their formation was military. They moved together and were very absolute about who and what was really a part of their little system. And about what they said, however mildly, there was a ring like iron. Men used to many mythologies and moralities could make no analysis of the mystery except the curious conjecture that they meant what they said. All attempts to make them see reason in the perfectly simple matter of the emperor's statue seemed to be spoken to deaf men. It was as if a new meteoric metal had fallen on the earth. It was a difference of substance to the touch. Those who touched their foundation fancied they had been struck like a rock. With a strange rapidity, like the changes of a dream, the proportions of things seemed to grow and change in their presence. Before most men knew what happened, these few men were palpably present. They were important enough to be ignored. People became suddenly silent about them and walked stiffly past them. We see a new scene in which the world has drawn its skirts away from these men and women, and they stand in the center of a great space like lepers. The scene changes again, and the great space where they stand is overhung on every side with a cloud of witnesses. Interminable terraces full of faces looking down towards them intently, for strange things are happening to them. New tortures have been invented for the madmen who have brought good news. That sad and weary society seems almost to find a new energy in establishing its first religious persecution. Nobody yet knows very clearly why that level world has thus lost its balance about the people in its midst. But they stand unnaturally still, while the arena and the world seem to revolve around them. And there shone on them in that dark hour a light that has never been darkened, a white fire clinging to that group like an unearthly phosphorescence, blazing its track through the twilights of history and confounding every effort to confound it with the mists of mythology and theory. The shaft or light or lightning by which the world itself had struck and isolated and crowned it, by which its own enemies have made it more illustrious and its own critics have made it more inexplicable. The halo of hatred around the Church of God. Any thoughts on that one? Why was it interesting? If it was interesting, why might it be found interesting? What was the perspective from?
Like a pagan's view, like a Roman's view.
Exactly. It's interesting because it's a view that we're not used to. We're going to be hearing the story of the Passion over the next few days, but we're not hearing it from that point of view. See, Chesterton always talked about, and this is the brilliance of Orthodoxy. You're seeing something for the first time. Sometimes you have to stand on your head to see things properly. This is him standing on his head to give us the view of what Christians might have looked like from the other point of view. I wanted to read you one more. How am I doing for time? Oh, I'm nearly out of time. Okay, maybe I won't.
You're at 306.
I'm at 306, so do I have any time left?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
Whether or not our brains can absorb much more, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Okay, I want to do
All year.
one more paragraph. One more paragraph, and then we're done. So this is in his chapter, The Strangest Story in the World. I probably should have read this first, but anyway, in this story of Good Friday, it is the best things in the world that are at their worst. That is what really shows us the world at its worst. It was, for instance, the priests of a true monotheism and the soldiers of an international civilization, Rome, the legend, founded upon fallen Troy and triumphant over fallen Carthage, had stood for a heroism which was the nearest that any pagan ever came to chivalry. Rome had defended the household gods and the human decencies against the ogres of Africa and the monstrosities of Greece. But in the lightning flash of this incident, we see great Rome, the imperial republic, going downward under her Lucretian doom. Skepticism had eaten away even the confident sanity of the conquerors of the world. He who is enthroned to say, "What is justice?" can only ask, "What is truth?" So in that drama, which decided the whole fate of antiquity, one of the central figures is fixed in what seems like the reverse of his true role. Rome was almost another name for responsibility, yet he stands forever as a sort of rocking statue of the irresponsible. Man could do no more. Even the practical had begun impractical. Standing between the pillars of his own judgment seat, a Roman had washed his hands of the world. Now, okay, I gotta finish this with just one more paragraph. Because I won't go through everything I want to go through in terms of they go through the crucifixion itself, but I'll talk about the resurrection because we are an Easter people. And we're not at Easter yet, but we are an Easter people. On the third day, the friends of Christ, coming at daybreak to the place, found the grave empty and the stone rolled away. In varying ways, they realized the new wonder.
Riker Jennings, could you please head to the bus that is waiting for you? Go quickly, Riker Jennings, quickly, head to the bus. They are waiting for you.
But even they hardly realized that the world had died in the night. What they were looking at was the first day of a new creation, with a new heaven and a new earth. And in a semblance of the gardener, God walked again in the garden, in the cool not of the evening, but of the dawn. I quoted that last one because I just used that. It should be going out right away to an email to all the staff I sent out today. So
You were inspired while you were preparing.
I was inspired while I was preparing. I'm not going to lie to you on that. Chesterton's view of the difference between here and here is the difference of his understanding, his brilliant understanding as a Western classical Christian, and his understanding as a Catholic, in my opinion. There is a transition in his thought in that process. Any thoughts on any of that? Was that news to you guys? Had you ever read that stuff before? It's beautiful to take a look at. And I'll finish with something a little bit lighter. I promised you can be significant and light at the same time, right? Chesterton was a great friend of Edmund Clerihew Bentley. Have you guys talked about clerihews at all? Oh, what do they learn in school?
Ask our teacher.
Yeah. Just Plato. Okay. Well, that's not just. Chesterton himself was also, so the clerihew is a type of poetry. Unlike the moderns, we take ourselves very seriously. Oh, modern poetry doesn't rhyme. For Chesterton, poetry must rhyme. And the clerihew is one of the lightest forms of poetry there is, but he loved it. And he used it in a number of his books. The illustrated biography for beginners, for example. There it is. Yeah, that's whatever. This is him. This is Chesterton mocking both the psychologists and the natural scientists. Okay, so one is looking at the brain of the other is looking at anyway, so here's what a clerihew looks like. It has a certain form. It is about a historical person, and it has a, what does it have? Is it an AABB? Yeah, AABB rhyming stanza. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
So I think this one is Chesterton himself, actually. The people of Spain think Cervantes equal to half a dozen Dantes, an opinion resented most bitterly by the people of Italy. Okay, I had to stretch on the Italy, but so it's about a historical figure, and there is a rhyming stanza to it. I'll give you another one. Alexander Graham Bell has shuffled off this mobile cell. He's not talking anymore, but he has a lot to answer for. So, my challenge to you, and we'll do questions in a second, but my challenge to you, and we'll give it a couple of weeks. I'll give you 2 weeks to get this to me, is to write a clerihew. So I'm asking you to write your own clerihew. It's a 4-line poem, shouldn't take too long. Needs to be a historical figure in the first line. So you can make it as long as you like, but as long as you have the name of a historic figure, or figure anyway, some sort of biographical figure in the first line, and then the rhyming stanza. That's really it for the clerihew.
Is it 10 syllables, or is it supposed to be like a
Is
10
it?
syllable? It's not always, but it's.
I don't. Yeah, it might be, but I'm not concerned.
Okay.
We're just gonna count.
And so the winner of this is going to receive this book. This was the book that got me on to is he writing one right now? Are you writing one right now? That's awesome. This was the book that drew me to Chesterton. I read this book. I found this book somewhere. I thought, this might look interesting. And I love the title of the book, Father James Shaw, may he rest in peace, a Jesuit, but we will forgive him that. And let's see, one person And another sort of learning, selected contrary essays on how to finally acquire an education while still in college or anywhere else, containing some belated advice about how to employ your leisure time when ultimate questions remain perplexing in spite of your highest earned academic degree, together with sundry lists nowhere else in captivity to be found. So he has a chapter on something, and then he'll have a list of 10 books. These are the 10 books you should read on this topic. So I'm finishing where I started
Who
with.
gave you that book?
5 books.
University.
I think I saw it. I just saw it on a shelf, honestly, and bought it somewhere. This is the most, and I'm not gonna lie to you, me buying this book is,
Right.
you sitting here today has an impact that there's a line between me buying this book and you sitting here today. Because that's how I got introduced to G.K. Chesterton myself. And half the books on the list are by Chesterton. He was also a very good Chesterton scholar. He has a great book. One of my favorite books is it's a series. It's a book of essays, and it's called on the principles of taxing beer, which he believes you shouldn't, by the way. But anyway, we'll leave that alone for the moment. But so I'm going to give this book. I went to look for my copy. I've given it away, so I ordered another one. I don't have it here with me, but I will have it in the next couple of weeks. I was able to track one down, and I will give it to the person who writes the best clerihew. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have our central leadership team judge the clerihew contest. It won't be me, it'll be the central leadership team, and whoever wins the contest will get the book. So any questions about the clerihew?
Do you like mine?
Well, why don't you read it out loud?
At a ChesterSession with Mr. Corrigan, the students exclaimed, "More!" again. Unfortunately, it won't happen. He's busy. Listening to Mr. Geiger again. Misery.
Setting the bar high.
Actually, I'm quite impressed. I'm quite impressed for the timeline. That's fantastic. Okay, so anyway, there's the book. I will hand deliver it. If it's somebody here, if it's somebody online, I will make sure you get it, and we'll mail it out to you or what have you. But you can email your. Well, we're gonna put Mrs. Wright on the.
Sure.
We'll email it to Mrs. Wright, and then she'll put them together for me, and we'll do the judging. So you have 2 weeks. So second week of Easter. So whatever that Friday is. 20.
No, that's the first. So May 1st.
May 1st. May 1st. So that's a good time. Due by
May
May
2nd.
1st.
May 2nd is the Friday.
May 2nd is the Friday. Okay. May 1st. And that Feast of St. Joseph is good.
Yeah, it is.
I said I'd say something about the Ballad of the White Horse. I heard this the other day. I found it fascinating. I was listening to a talk on the Lord of the Rings. Surprise, surprise. And I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings. It is a religious work. It is a fundamentally religious and Catholic work. That's a quote from JRR Tolkien, the author of Lord of the Rings, by the way. So it's not me saying it, it's saying it. If you don't know, I hope you know that. And my goodness, what have they done with your education if you don't? Okay, you do. Okay. Well done. And anyway, there are 2 main things left out of Lord of the Rings by the movies, which are great. I'm a big fan of the movies. Peter Jackson was an atheist, but he channeled the true meaning, in my opinion, of the books into the work. If you watch extended editions, anyway, it's 11 hours. So time is spent. 2 things missing from the books. Who's read the books? Okay, don't deny yourself. Read them this weekend. It's fantastic. Listen, I read the books to my children, for goodness sake. So what's missing? One's a character. Yeah.
Tom Bombadil.
Tom Bombadil's missing. And then at the end, so that's at the beginning, and what's missing at the end? Yeah.
The Scourging of the Shire.
Scourging of the Shire. Yeah, you guys are killing it now. I'm doing it.
They're McClarney's.
What's the last chapter of this call?
The last chapter.
I think it's the last chapter.
When we just read it,
It's all straight?
Yeah, so there's no.
Is there a reference to the Scourging of the White Horse? There is a reference to the Scourging of the White Horse. The Scourging of the White Horse many believe the scourging of the Shire is a reference back to this poem, The Scourging of the White Horse. It is the final thing where they clean the white horse and make it back to what it was. And the scourging of the Shire is the same thing, where they clean the Shire and make it back to what it was. Who had briefly taken it over. What is the guy's name? So
Don't spoil it.
Sharky. Oh, don't ruin it, right?
No, I don't want to.
Yeah, don't ruin it. I just include that one because I love it. It's okay. Like we're steeped, and you guys are in a privileged place to be learning a ton of amazing things. But don't forget that religion is more than those things. It's your religion is a person. Your religion is a relationship with the person, and that's a relationship of love. It's a love affair. That's what our religion should always be. When it becomes about the other things, it can get stale, cold. You can be deep and joyous and light. Oh, I'm supposed to have a question slide. I don't have a question slide. Any questions for me? You can ask anything you want.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Students can ask anything you want. I reserve the right, but anyway, you can ask. Go ahead.
What currently is your favorite board game?
Oh. Currently, my favorite board game is Frosthaven. Yeah, I'm enjoying Frosthaven. Its predecessor was called Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven, I think, is probably number 2 on the board game geek list. If you're unfamiliar with the board game geek list, you guys are missing out. And its successor is Frosthaven by Isaac Childress. It's kind of a one-man operation, this guy. And they're in trouble right now because the Gloomhaven, which is the original one, the second printing of it, which everybody kickstarts. You kickstart it, which means, does everybody know what Kickstarter is? It's like OG. No.
Give money so that somebody
You give
can write
money
a book.
so something can.
Write a book.
So I
Kickstarter.
kickstarted a book that featured your illustrious teacher back there at one time, and a story about him. But I also kickstarted a lot of board games, and they're all produced in
Germany, America.
I wish. A lot of them were designed in Germany, but where they produce, where's everything produced? China. And so you don't have them yet, so they're China. So right now, like all the Gloomhaven games, the second edition Gloomhaven games, I didn't kickstart this, but they're all in China. And there's now literally a 285% tariff on them, so they can't get over it. It's destroying the board game industry, actually. Anyway, that's an aside. That is a big aside. I'm a board game, I'm a board game collector as well. Books and board games, which means I can never move.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
See the garage.
What would Chesterton's favorite board game be?
Oh, wow. What would Chesterton's favorite board game be? That's a great question. There's a game called Agricola. And Agricola is kind of 3 acres and a cow into a board game. Chesterton was a famous distributist, or whatever they're calling it now, and change it. And so that would fit well with his kind of theory of the world. Yeah, that's a good question. Yes.
Peter has a question.
Yes.
Why don't you turn your camera on, Peter?
Then we're just
We-
hearing
then
it
they
from
can
his
get-
voice.
Hi, Peter.
There we go.
I'm
Hey,
looking at you.
I think my dad actually has that game, Agricola. I think he actually has that game.
Fantastic. You should try it. Try it this Easter weekend. Yeah, he'll love it if you say that. When my kids say, can we play a game? I tend to avoid all the you doing your chores and everything because they're asking something I want to do. So, yeah. Yes. Anything else before we're done? Okay, thank you. You guys are great. I appreciate your attentiveness to my rambling, and yeah, thanks for this.
Thank you, Mr. Corrigan. So